Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to the Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of having, you're my first guest of the new year. He is a man of many talents. He's a comedian. He's a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu practitioner, host of the Verbal Tap podcast, the Grappling Hour, and host of Early Late Night with Raf Esparza. He's the one and only Raf Esparza. What's good, my man?
Not much, man. I have to tell you, every time I see that you go live, and it's often, it's usually with the Limelight promo at the beginning. And for a split second, I always have this thing of thinking, like, how many times is he going to come on the show? And I realize, oh, no, that's just the bumper. Because he can't be that interesting to bring on 40 times.
I mean, with what he's doing between Hollywood as well as AEW and United Wrestling Network's affiliate shows, I mean, I'm sure he is.
Yeah, probably. I just know that he was booking himself on my show when I just dropped in to say hello. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. I should be mean to him when I go on Adam's podcast. That seems like the right remedy to do.
Oh, I guess. I mean, that's what is it? The more flies with sugar than with the chicken shit. And I think you went the chicken shit route.
I mean, he's got to understand the heel nature, so I think he'll get through it just fine. But no, it's an honor and a privilege to be here too, sir. I appreciate you bringing me on, man.
Man, so you are somebody that literally not just attack the podcasting genre like full tilt, but also 2020's kind of array of things happening and not happening. And you have been probably my favorite companion piece to the litany of UFC pay-per-views and I guess free ESPN Plus events over the course of the 2020 season.
Thank you. Yeah, that came about with the idea of you're not supposed to be around people right now. And I said, well, I'm always covering events. So I'm usually like tweeting or jotting down notes or doing something work-wise with these events. So I don't tend to see a ton of people. And then I realized, who's really going to want to talk about it if they don't feel excited about it? And I said, oh, okay, if that's the case and people can't get together, I think it was Chill's Submission Underground that was one of the first combat sports to come back after the whole quarantine and lockdown started. And I said, I think jiu-jitsu and combat sports needs a win. I think it needs a way to get people excited and bring them together. And we had done the fight companions, but we had not really drank to this extent on there. And it made me say, how do you do a fight companion that's a little bit different? And I thought, well, we know a lot of the competitors. So if we start toasting them and make them part of the process, then I think it makes it a little bit different than other people's process.
No, absolutely. And you've done it impeccably well. And it's kind of cool to see, kind of the mindset and the genesis for such awesome things. So again, it's one of my favorite ways to watch. I don't think I could go back to watching a UFC without, the Grappling Hours kind of companion piece. And I'm not usually a fan of companion pieces. So I'm just saying.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Part of it's the magic is the panel. And then the other part of the magic is, for me, if you're not going to be able to perform in front of a crowd for a while, then you have to stay sharp. Like, you can't just show back up performing live with an audience and have them understand, oh, give them a little bit of ease. There's been a pandemic. It's like, no, an audience is paying. They're spending money to go out. They're coming to make you that part of that night. So you have to make that experience good. So if you get cold or rusty, that's time that's taken away from you as a performer. And more importantly, I think we all like performing to some extent. So it's a good way to do crowd work. And when you get hecklers or bots that are coming after you, most people will get very nervous or afraid of that sort of a thing. And I think that enhances the show. And what they may not realize is, much like when you go to a comedy show, you're probably not going to upstage the comedian. A lot of the times you feel that you are, And that could be either you're inebriated, you're too full of sense of self, or that you just had a bad day and you want to take that out on the comic. You paid money to do that. And for me, I'm like, well, you're not paying me to be here. So this is free, which means you're choosing to be here and watch something that you allegedly hate. So what does that say about you? And what does that say about me? So I've just thought it's a fun way to play with people, and the people who come to see us regularly laugh along at them. And I think that makes it kind of a shared experience in a different way.
No, absolutely. And speaking of sharing, S Tatum 27 on Twitch is saying, shouting out Adam from Twitter, Adam Woods, because loving the fact that I'm all on many different platforms. And he says stupid autocorrect. He meant Twitch. Okay, so there you go. There's that. And then Don McGuire saying, killing it, Adam. No, you are. So shout out to Don McGuire and the Fighter's Voice. And can't have cheese without the wine, Adam. Okay, that's then I've been doing it wrong for the last like 12 years that I've been of legal age.
Sounds like some sort of weird fortune cookie misfire that they go, can't have cheese without the wine. No, throw that one out. We don't need that one.
Yes,
I think that'll be too confusing for audience.
Yeah, because I mean, what happens if you're a wine lover, a wine connoisseur, a sommelier of sorts, and I mean you're lactose intolerant? I mean, I don't know.
I'll put it to you this way. I think one of the hardest parts about doing a fight companion is when we do bring on people, I have to walk them through the idea of, so I'm not going to force you to drink. I don't want to make everybody an alcoholic. I just will take back my invite if you are not inclined to drink, because it's going to be weird when I'm sauced by the end of hour 5 and you're just fine. And I'm the guy that's supposed to be navigating the ship. So, you know, it's just a little bit more appreciated if you would partake. But I'm also not trying to create more problems during the pandemic. So I'm kind of like, do what you want. Just put some Kool-Aid in there and tell us what it is then.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Steve Tatum agrees with you. Damn bots. But then again, you know, you're kind of moving the needle. You're changing the algorithm if you've gotten bots, because if you have like, I don't know, like 2 people that are genuine and no bots, it's just like, are you really anything of worth?
I just always am surprised by the amount of time that people have. Like, I heckled the people I know and my friends, but to heckle strangers seems like a very time-intensive thing that must be keeping you from doing whatever nothing you were doing before.
That is... wow, super introspective. Good Lord. Are you Dr. Phil?
I hope not. Oh God. Yes. I wish I was one of Oprah's cronies. I would 100% sell out super hard if Oprah was like, Raf, what is your specialty? And I'd be like, Oprah, first of all, pleasure. Mine is more of a spiritual podcast. And we really speak to people through their chakras. And she'd be like, here, take $3 billion and make yourself a TV show. It's done. Thanks, Oprah.
I mean, is it in 2021, is it more advantageous to be one of Oprah's cronies or Rogan's cronies? Because I would sell everything for Rogan. I mean, total disclosure. So Rogan, if you're listening, I'm just saying.
I'm perfectly okay not being in the Joe Rogan universe. And here is why. Joe Rogan, and I put this out before the meme had ever come out. I want to make it very clear. I don't want to say that we're the people who inspired the meme, but there is proof that I said this joke on the show many years ago. But I've always said that Joe Rogan is the male Oprah. Now, yes, if you just put the word girl behind any of the statements that he says, which is be the hero of your own movie, girl, that's an Oprah quote. So to me, when you think about it and you say like Oprah's got these cronies, these are all fake guys, Dr. Phil, Dr. Oz, Nate Berkus, I want to be like, so Joe Rogan has Brendan Schaub, Eddie Bravo. Oh my God, he's male Oprah. So if you look at the batting average, not very different.
Not at all. And that's why this, kind of new genesis of podcasts dumb, all right? The kingdom. I'm not saying podcasts are dumb. That would be kind of contrarian of me, but I mean theoretically, like having this universe of podcasts, this kingdom, so to speak. Like in many ways, we are essentially Laurent versions of the Oprah and Rogan cronies.
I'll tell you this much, man. I mean, the thing that you have to celebrate about both of them is they found an audience, they engaged that audience, and they spoke to it. And so, for as much as sometimes the disinformation or the lifestyle aspects permeate the cultures that we are a part of, meaning mixed martial arts culture or just a lot of guys that we know who are within the sport, they take that as a decrease. So, even Joe's pretty good about saying, like, hey, dude, I'm a big dummy. You should probably go research this for yourself. I just believe space aliens are probably running our American government. Most people take out the first part and just say, like, space aliens running the government. Got it, Joe. Fact. Got it. I'll write that down and I'll believe that. And then the rest of us have to spend our days going, like, no, clearly he's putting on a show and running out of things to talk about in hour 4. This is why when people go, there's fake news, it's like, well, how much are you contributing to fake news on a daily basis? If you really look at what you're consuming, what you're doing, you know, are you responsible for this? So that's why when I do look at these comments and I look at these bots, we all want to think that there's some Russian dude behind it, when in actuality, they're not too far from us. If you look at your friends on a regular basis and you see the comments that they put in that are completely shit post comments on other people's stuff, you realize that the culture is far more closer to us than sometimes we care to admit.
Agreed. And Steve Tatum goes, surprise, Adam. I'm still trying to figure out all of Rogan's diet meat. And he entertains. So there's that. No, and I mean, entertainment it should be your middle name. I don't know what your middle name is, but I think it should be entertain, right? Because that's something that you do like so often and so, I mean, credibly. That's a word, right?
Sure.
So how did it all start? I mean, obviously you're big in the grappling game. Obviously, one of the podcasts, both of your podcasts are kind of grappling inspired in Verbal Tap and Grappling Hour. So how did like the world of combat sports kind of enter your life?
I would say this, mixed martial arts began this way for me. I never thought I was going to do any of this sort of stuff. When I saw Bruce Lee movies or any kind of Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, I just thought, that's cool. That's something that they do. I'm never going to do that. I was playing soccer, baseball, football, all these different sports when I was a kid, but I never thought I was going to go anywhere. It was just mostly a mission, keep me from being obese. And it worked for the most part. I was rail thin. I was about $140 and I could not gain weight. So when I was playing soccer, you know, a breeze could knock me over and it wasn't great. So I was fast at the time. And I was enjoying it, but I always knew I wanted to do something else. And I always had fun telling jokes to the guys, doing impressions for my buddies. But I never knew that this fascination with pro wrestling and the comedy that comes from that would be this beneficial to my later life, because the science that goes from some of my favorite wrestlers, your Bret Harts, your Dean Malenko's, you know, all of those guys, even at the time, and even saying it, we all know who I'm supposed to say that the WWE does not acknowledge as a person, but that guy, Kurt Angle, those people to me were far more interesting than your Hulk Hogan's and your Ultimate Warriors, who many of my friends were into. But I realized, like, man, there's a reason why I like the technical people like Bret Hart and other technical wrestlers, was because I could see there was a little bit of a science to it. So cut to a few years later when I was in college, the Spike TV at the time was given the access to The Ultimate Fighter. And I remember watching the UFC at the very beginning and saying it's too violent, like the eye pokes and all that sort of stuff. So I stuck with my pro wrestling. And then all of a sudden, when I could see it live and I saw that they cleaned it up and I saw that there was an actual science behind it, I said, okay, I'd like to learn it. I'd like to know what it is. I don't have to practice it as a way of life, but I just kind of want to understand it better. And when I took these classes, I saw there was a way that even me, not the world's most athletic person, could do some of the things that a lot of the guys who were really good at it could do. And I said, okay, if there's a Venn diagram that allows me to do it, then maybe I need to use my brain and have that be the motivating factor. And lo and behold, it's the only reason I'm not super garbage at jiu-jitsu is because I can kind of think out the structures. I can work with guys and sometimes tell them something that they may not see, but that their natural athleticism, you teach it to them once, they'll have it down pat. So I found kind of a role for myself that I was able to start implementing. But yeah, that was the beginning and the genesis of, okay, maybe I like mixed martial arts, or maybe I want to try it. And I think ultimately, as I was doing a lot more comedy, I realized there really wasn't another host who was doing what I do. Like there was people or were people who would interview other athletes, but those interviews were really dry. Mm-hmm. You could see that there was very little new information you would learn in an interview. And more often than not, there was very little entertainment to it. There was very little appeal to want to get to know the athletes rather than just saying, you won, congrats, why? And for me, I always thought the special sauce was, well, why the person? Then why did they win? Because if you don't have the why to the person, then you really don't care as much as they do about what it means for them to win that particular event. So for me, it became find a way to tell the story that both gives the athlete an opportunity to tell their journey, much like mine, and then allow them to describe why this particular moment as a topical show is important to them to talk about this win. Because hopefully, if you're doing it right, you'll talk to them a few more times as the years go by.
No, absolutely true. And that's kind of why I started doing it. Now, I mean, I guess my background was my grandfather in Fiji. My mom's Fijian, and my grandfather in Fiji was the first Fijian-born broadcaster, non-BBC, in our country's history. So in many ways, my mom would kind of gear me to in the vein of my grandfather, right? So when I would watch wrestling, much like you, I would, go like, man, I'm Fijian on one hand and an American descendant of slave on the other. I mean, this is going to be great. I'm going to be 6'10". I'm probably going to wrestle in Japan, until my knees blow out. And then I'll find some cushy commentator spots somewhere in North America, right? I mean, probably WCW next to Shivani. How wrong was I? Bloody hell. But then again, I mean, AEW exists, so I'm not too far off, right? So with that all being said, and Stephen Tatum's goes, every time you say Russian, take a shot. I've got water. It's pretty early on a Monday morning or afternoon.
Why are you taking a shot this early in the morning? Like, bro, I know it's the new year, but Jesus, give it a rest, dude.
Harden the paint. Maybe somebody was sober. I mean, they were the unicorn and stayed sober all 2020 and was like, oh, we're changing the calendar dates and whatever. Like, full Monty, let's go. Let's get this, And were we referring to Mr. B? Probably Benoit. That's probably
yep. Probably Mr. B, the Chris Benoit. What's really weird is I remember on the day that they announced that he had done what he had done. I called up one of my buddies and I said, I can't believe it. And this is a guy that I went to a WrestleMania Access with when it was out here in Anaheim. And I just remember being like, dude, I shook that guy's hand. Like, there was a weird feeling about it of just, oh, that can't happen. And then you start to think about the head trauma and you go, yeah, that probably could check out. And probably not being in the best of minds of being in a good place after Eddie's death and being so close to him. And then, of course, when we revisit these things during Dark Side of the Ring, my wife, who will come in and out of this sort of stuff, kind of looks at that episode and goes, oh, and I go, babe, it was bad. It was really rough. But but if you're talking about just the aspect of the wrestler himself, his matches were phenomenal. Like, they made me believe that he could make a Brock Lesnar tap out. His in-ring persona, his tenacity, the way that he approached it. There's no getting around the fact that Chris Benoit was an amazing technical wrestler. And just anytime you saw him link up with, say, Brett, which was very rare, Jericho, Angle, any of those guys in that sort of genre,
Malenko, yep.
him and Malenko matches, I would go back and watch those like a million times just to kind of see what it is. And there's a reason why Malenko now is passing that good fortune on to a lot of these guys and saying like, hey, listen, this may not be your style, but here's kind of what I would suggest. And it makes me very happy to know that he's still employed by AEW.
Oh yeah, with I mean, we've got obviously Malenko and Anderson in AEW. You've got Johnny Saints as the on-air general manager of NXT UK. We've got William Regal as NXT's general manager, and I'm like, yeah, there's got to be a Regal stretch or a transition that is getting passed down that I'm going to see that I'm just going to absolutely fall in love with.
I mean, to be fair, my special gift in jiu-jitsu, it's not being good at any of this. It is finding a way to connect the moves where I tell them, oh yeah, you could take their back, but there's also a Regal stretch here. And they go, how do you always think of this? And I go, that's how many years I watch professional wrestling. Is to me, those were the first jiu-jitsu moves. And I didn't have Danaher breakdowns of them. I just would like rewind it and go, oh, that was a really cool entry. Holy shit. Did Bret Hart do a birimbolo? Like, did Macho Man do a birimbolo? You look at all of those things and you say, man, okay, so I was ingesting this. I just didn't have a name for it or a reason to do it yet. And then now when I'm doing these things and I go to visit gyms or I would see some of my friends, they'd want to know, how do you apply some of these moves? So they might have remembered years ago how to do it, but it's been so long. And every so often I'll be like, oh, hey, did you know that this variation of a reverse De La Riva turns into a figure four? And they're like, I guess I didn't really think of that. And I was like, I know, I did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, I might have been a la Kurt Angle victory where I caught somebody at an open mat in a sharpshooter. Like it was just there. And I was just like, okay. And I held it. That was like my ultimate catch and release where like I fucking did the Brett Henning. Brett Henning actually in 92. Yeah. And fucking crank back on that some bitch and then let it go. And I was just like, yes. So
you're a better person than I am, because I have gotten to the point where I have told these guys that they'll use these moves just for like regular jiu-jitsu things, like people who do spine locks and stuff like that. I have no problem putting them in a sharpshooter because I'm always like, oh, but here's my kind of Batman rule about the whole thing, which is I don't put those moves on civilians. I don't put them on people who don't like or watch pro wrestling. It's only to the people who I know have some kind of knowledge of it. Otherwise, it's just mean. And that's really not what I do.
That's very, very. I mean, I guess it would be humanitarian like of you because, like, I mean, that's the thing where, and this is what I found in my career. Right? Is MMA fans hate pro wrestling, pro wrestling fans hate MMA, but MMA fighters love pro wrestling. Pro wrestlers love MMA. It's. I mean, I don't. That's a large part of my success is being able to kind of transition between both of them, but
reveal one thing real quick to you, which is that years ago, Kevin had no interest in integrating pro wrestling into our shtick for Verbal Tap. And I was able to talk him into it once he saw the numbers we would get back. And so this is years before we had started a WWE BJJ week. This was just, hey, dude, look, this photo of me putting you in this move got this many likes. Our regular posts get this many. And he goes, okay. And I told him, I go, here's the dumb part. A lot of these MMA fans are giant pro wrestling nerds, but they just don't want to admit it. Yes. And when they're invited to celebrate it as opposed to always having to shit on things. And I think that's like part of our culture, which is people will more often tell you what they hate than what they love. So if you tell them like, hey, listen, I really like this Martin Scorsese movie, they'll be like, actually, I like Goodfellas. And you go, oh, everybody should love Goodfellas. I just thought that was assumed. I just didn't know if you'd watch some of his other works like Mean Streets or Taxi Driver. Nah, that's all. I don't really like that stuff. Well, you don't get a Goodfellas unless you have the Taxi Driver or the Raging Bull. So sometimes the artist has to work their way toward that. Also, what the hell? Like, why do we care what you think or you don't think?
Right.
I feel like people want to invite that. So it's the same thing with MMA fans who go, I hate pro wrestling. Well, fun story. All of our videos every year for our WWE BJJ week get about 100,000 views collectively. So some of you guys, whether you'd want to admit it or not, kind of dig what we do, or at the very least the concept of it, and all we're doing is celebrating that. So I always have issue with people who are like, I don't really like pro wrestling. I was like, bro, you grew up in the same era I did. We all were watching that shit.
Hell yes. And I mean, Anthony Aguilera, who, crazy enough, Anthony Aguilera, when he saw that you were going to be on my podcast, he was like, I love this. Now, Anthony Aguilera has been on the show, and I have interviewed 250 some odd people since then, and none of it but you, good sir, is who Anthony Aguilera likes even more than himself. But to which he says, I'm going to boa sharpshooter Raf next time.
Here's the story behind this one. Anthony messages me yesterday, and we get to talking. Like, he's promoting a old interview, I guess old by now standards, of the interviewer asking Undertaker what he's going to do to say, I think it's AJ Styles. And Undertaker gives a real classic. It was one of his last promos, just being like, AJ, you listen here, boy. And like, it's great. And I tell him, I'm glad you're looking at at the things. But what you don't know about Anthony, though, is that he has gone out of his way to not train with me for years. We're talking like about 2 years now. The man has never found the time. And I have documentation of him saying, oh, I just can't. I forgot how a car works. Oh man, I would go train with you, but ow, my side hurts. So then yesterday, he brings to me, when we're discussing pro wrestling moves, a video of him doing what he refers to as a boa shooter. And I looked at him, and it's nothing better than a glorified executioner, which is not a sharpshooter. So to me, it says the young man is learning, and I'm glad that he is educating himself. Unfortunately, it's just not all there yet. So I just want to make sure he knows that that's what he's getting into. Most people just assume it's going to be a jiu-jitsu match, but I will cheat. I will use foreign objects, because in WWE BJJ, it is clearly acceptable.
Absolutely. When I said I was going to be legal, I lied, fool. So
absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I have to see if we can find one of those shirts in a second, but go on, man.
And he says, I love my dude, Raf. Probably not after this, because he says,
oh, no, there's a delay. Wait, stop. I was being nice. I don't think so, bro. I see that.
Right. So there's that. But I mean, getting into the questions, right? Any thoughts on David Benoit? Like, I guess we could say that because he was somewhat featured in the Chris Benoit Dark Side of the Ring deal, and he's had iterations where he's gone backstage at WWE shows, now AEW shows, and what have you. What are your thoughts on the prospects of him possibly coming into the squared circle, so to speak?
Man, I saw that interview with him and Chris Van Vliet, and Chris is a pretty good interviewer, and even that one, he had to pull out some of his best tricks, his best elements of being an interview to really drag out the heartache and make it acceptable for him to talk about his father's death. I can tell you this, I don't know that I want him to. And this is purely from my perspective of, has that kid not been enough? Like he's been through enough. It makes me think you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But I feel that part of the legacy that he is still holding on to, and with good reason, I'm sure, because there are, I'm sure, fond memories of him and his father bonding through wrestling, is that he wants to kind of continue that and maybe restore something to it. Maybe in his mind, it might put a good button on it. But this is one of those things where I saw people in the comment section on that interview too, and they had opinions. And again, it's tough with Benoit because he's his own person and so is his son. And it feels like they were putting the weight of his father on the son. And I just think to myself, I don't know what it's like to live that life. And if pro wrestling is in his dream set, I hope that he sincerely trains. He clearly has the right people who want to do it. but I'm pretty sure if you heard that interview, and I think you did,
Yes.
which is that Chris Jericho was saying, you don't need to. I'd rather you don't. And to me, I think Chris is a very savvy guy to have done this business for over 30 years. So if Chris Jericho is telling you like, bro, I don't think so, I would take that as a good inclination. But, man, if he's destined to do it, it's got to be one of those things that sometimes, you're not going to stop somebody from doing it.
Yeah, and for our MMA strictly fans here, I mean, think if you want to get a characterization of this Van Fleet David Benoit interview, you just revert back to Brett Okamoto and Tony Ferguson from the last iteration of Tony Ferguson fighting. It was that, but across an hour and such time. So there you go. And I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it much like, it's weird where I get in the same headspace of like David Benoit doing pro wrestling, like Tony Ferguson in MMA, where like, I just don't want to see any head trauma anymore. And if they both called it a day, obviously David Benoit is a lot less heralded than Tony Ferguson, but I'm just like, I go back to like, I remember the crap that Harry Smith, the son of Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, got when he said he wanted to enter into, pro wrestling, which, I mean, his father's death wasn't even as drastic or dramatic as the Benoit, murder-suicide. So with that all being said, I'm kind of there with both of them, Tony Ferguson and David Benoit. And like, I think I said it on Voodoo in the Woods. Like, I would love to see Tony Ferguson go on a 30-0 run this next run. But the minute he takes one shot to the head in training or in the octagon, I'm out. Like, retire. Like, and I'm a huge Ferguson fan.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder how much of that was just Tony's personality, and then how much of that is the result of the years that he has been battling and grinding and the effects on it. So a lot of people will talk about CTE, but then mitigated under all of that has to be the mental health discussion. And to me, I think that's the weirdest element of shit talk from fighters, is that, I don't know, man. I really try to have some sort of sympathy or empathy, I guess is a better word, to understanding what they go through before we do jokes or do stuff like that. Because even watching Mike Perry yesterday smash through a glass, it's not great. I'll give you the heads up on that one. But let's just say there's a little bit of blood surrounding him. He had apparently tried to kick a door or something to that extent. And then he was kind of telling the fans, like, listen, I do all this shit for you guys. You need to pay me to answer questions now. It steps this boundary of, oh, he's fun and nonsensical, and I don't think he's okay, nor do I ever know that he was ever okay fully. And so it's kind of weird, because I do see my friends and the peers in the meme community, like, they just see the opportunity and they go for it. And honestly, it's kind of within their right if they want to. But to me, it's hard to stomach contributing to a culture that may make them worse off than they were coming in. So, we're not afraid to do jokes. I think there's a very fine line of doing it. I think if you're in the public eye, it does come with the territory. But I do think that there is a very clear delineation between us being absolute dicks. And if we do choose to be heels on people, it's like a Paul brother or a Brendan Schaub, where you go, no, they probably deserve that. That seems okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, MMA Junkie just put out an article, I believe it was yesterday, of all the people that had a bit of umbrage with how this kind of COVID situation happened and their thoughts on it, but they also took PPE loans. So just saying. And one is an elected official here in California. And you kind of figure, you could read the tea leaves on that one.
I'll tell you this much for that article, which is, if you look at the comment section again, they're attacking and be like, oh, just stick to the news, MMA Junkie. You would do this. I'm not going to read this anymore. I mean, listen, dude, if your guy that you were celebrating took money that you were against, I think sometimes we're watching people real time act out their own inner monologue in a comment section. So, hey, man, I'm a writer too. I know what it's like to have a bad first draft. But you know what happens when I have a bad first draft? I throw it away. I try not to make the first draft go on a comment section of being like, I haven't figured out how I felt about this, but let's just, you know what? I really think that you guys, it's your fault. That's right. MMA Junkie, you're the guys who made Tito Ortiz take a... You know what? You guys are just a liberalist. God, I don't even know how to finish the sentence. You guys suck. I'm not watching it anymore.
Yeah.
That's how dumb it is.
Yeah, which I don't know, man. It's weird. It's so weird. That's all I gotta say is it's a weird place. And I mean, aside from this, I mean, total disclosure, everyone. Aside from these, I didn't read the comments on my stuff, other people's stuff. Like it just,
it's a good way of life. I'm a huge marketing guy, and it's hard for me to fully do it so this is kind of the mentality I have about making memes, which is we get guys who want to try to add on to the joke, who want to tell you their feelings. We put up something with Justin Bieber starting to box in a video. So I guess he had his tattoos removed or covered up for this video, and the joke was, look what you did, Paul Brothers. Now you got Bieber out here thinking he's a boxer. Now, this is for a music video, and we are fully in the suspension of disbelief of this is a character. But we just think like an extension of the very funny meme about a Paul brother being put in white barbershops everywhere. That's a funny joke. We're not going to get around that. That's just a funny joke. So ours is an extension of like, well, look what that's wrought kind of a thing. And we had people in there who were debating like, man, you guys don't even know, what is this world coming to? Justin Bieber's boxing, this and this. And it's like they fall fully into the realm to the point where two guys are fighting with each other and they're actually fighting with inaccurate facts. And to me, I just go, I'm not going to waste my time, but this is highly amusing to me. And how much of my time do I want to invest fact checking the person who goes, this is old, he has tattoos now? And I'm like, well, clearly you didn't read the article. So it's a quick way to know if you've done the higher reading. And second of all, I don't expect people to do their homework on Justin Bieber. I was scrolling and I just saw a video or an ad of it and I go, oh, he's boxing? Yeah, that's close enough. That's somebody we should make fun of right now. Yeah. And to me, it's not even making fun of any, hopefully, mental health that he's going through. It's just like, why is he doing boxing? And, I know people know in the past that he's worked with Mayweather and all those sorts of things. Dope, dude. And if he loves boxing and that's what he's doing, great, and more power to him. It's just, let's look at the reality of the Paul brothers broke about $1 million in sales for twice now. And it's getting concerning now to the point where for the rest of their lives, you're going to have, was it Logan, who's going to be able to say he was the co-main event on a Mike Tyson card, which disrupts my soul deep down.
It does mine, but then again, I mean, the knockout memes, the endless array of knockout Nate Robinson memes that came out of it, I'm good with it. I'm totally good with it. And what does that say about boxing, right? For every, like and I grew up a boxing fan because I mean, for me, the genesis of combat sports was Bret Hart versus Randy Savage, Saturday night's main event, I think August of '87, yada, yada, yada. But after that, I was just like, I like all the cartoons, all the superhero stuff, everything went away. Ninja Turtles went away because I felt everything that was worth doing was done in a ring, right? So then here comes like Tommy Hearns in boxing and Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and Mike Tyson and an array of stars. But like the last couple fights that I was like a fan of boxing, like I think it was Mayweather Pacquiao, and I knew going in, this should have happened 12 years before when they were in their prime, right? But I was just like, and it happened on my birthday. I was like, there's no way that I would want to spend my birthday, May 7th of whatever year that was in this fight, right? And it was garbage. And then the Canelo Triple G kind of debacles, and I
Yeah.
was just like, okay, I'm out. So to me, I think it's like, what does that say about the state of boxing that a YouTube star that almost got blacklisted from doing a video in a Japanese suicide forest co-main events a damn Mike Tyson card.
I would say that part of the ability for them to have a resurgence is that their fan base is already going to be comprised of mostly shitheads. So that's one part. And then there's the dual part of people who are just combat sports fans or sports fans in general who maybe don't pay attention to any of that stuff. So to me, I don't know a ton about them other than when I see them pop up in a article that I go, what do they do? You know what? I don't care. They're not my jam. They're not my cup of tea. So I don't really care. Then they find their way into our world. And I say, well, I guess now I have to be at least a little aware of them. I just know that when I did read about them before, I felt that there was nothing there. Mm-hmm. But there is a culture of celebrity that feels, oh, well, they've worked hard to get here. And it's kind of like, I'm sure that they've gone through the training. I've seen some of the friends and even my own friend network who have trained with them. Yeah. And cool, dude. It's just, it does show a very weird state of affairs that is so popular. And if it helps resurge a little bit of boxing, that's fine. To me, I think mixed martial arts will always hold a stronger place. Boxing, of course, has a historical significance to people. But if you can look at it, though, if that somehow creates a little bit of upwind for people like Ryan Garcia to pick up more steam, then we truly do get a little bit of good happening when people are interested in, say, even boxing or Crawford being able to pull out some amazing things for us to watch. Because to me, I'm just like, dude, I'm not against any of this. I just don't want to pull up with any of the BS. And as long as I can watch something that's good, that I really, really feel something for the athletes for, then I'll be interested. But it does take a lot. And I feel like boxing is always this giant uphill battle of who's fighting? Do I have to have the zone? Mm-hmm. I don't want to get the zone. I don't feel like I'm going to get that.
Hell, the judging in itself, man. Yeah. There has never been a boxing fight. And again, a lifelong pro wrestling fan that can suspend a healthy dose of disbelief. But I cannot suspend the fact that I feel going into that somewhere in the locker room, somebody got an envelope full of money and then they go to the judges table. That's just it. No matter, just saying.
Everything's pro wrestling. That's really what it comes down to is, I think that insight, that genius quotation is like, anytime you see it and you think like, that's not true. And you go, well, it permeates all the way to the presidency at this point. So everything really is wrestling. If you look at it, like yesterday, a president said, find me votes. And people go, I don't know if we have enough here. When they say they're going to investigate, they go, we're going to investigate. I was like, what more is there to investigate? It's in the tape. And people go, I think we need to take a closer look at that. And I go, you know what? Okay. It's really bad when even Nixon's looking at half of these tapes and going like, really? Mm-hmm. Y'all are good with this? Okay. Well, that was fun. Yeah. So anyway, I guess what I would say to you is, to me, I root for boxing on the outside. And I am a visitor who comes to occasionally do it. And I say this as somebody who during the quarantine found boxing as a very therapeutic and good way when I had to give up more of my grappling, because I feel like part of my identity evaporated without my usual forms of going to jiu-jitsu and grappling on a regular basis. Because if I have my choice, I will be grappling 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes a 2-a-day session, just to feel normal to do my other creative ventures. It loosens my ability to think. It loosens my ability to not spend so much time behind the desk and trying to produce the next thing. It's always like, go train a little bit, come back here, refreshed, have a perspective, and then do a show. But if I don't have that and I'm just talking about grappling, it's hard. Mm-hmm. So one of the first things I was able to kind of, my wife and I had very real discussions about it, and she wasn't huge into me going back to grappling, even when there's a pandemic going on. And I could understand that. And I don't really want to harm her, but she could kind of see if I did it with maybe one person, and that one person was boxing with me. She said, maybe that's it. And I thought a good way to do that was to buy some privates from fighters within the community, because I knew that they weren't going to be able to fight. And I said, how can I support people within our community, or how can I still stay fit while also being engaged mentally? And I have to say, I had friends who at the very beginning refused to let me pay, refused to let me do anything that was reciprocal in nature, and it only aggravated me more. But I think it does speak to a larger element of everybody at that time was still trying to figure out the right way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I was so angered that there was so much negativity when I could see like these little sparks of good humanity amongst people. And it made me think, like, there has to be more of this out there. There has to be more people doing good things and nice things to each other that we don't talk about, perhaps. And, during the pandemic, it kind of gave me an idea to start working on a side project.
Ooh, man.
Yeah.
This is, I guess we would have to check out the social media streams to break that, because.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit of what it is. So obviously, like I know, when you have a pandemic, you get the ability to just go out and do as many shows as you want, because what else are you going to do? You can't go out and do other stuff. So I, like you, was going on almost daily, to the point where I was interviewing athletes and I was interviewing gym owners. And I realized, talking to gym owners, I did not have the background as a therapist or a psychologist to really work on the psyche that they were going through. Mm-hmm. So I could be empathetic. I could feel bad for their situation, but I couldn't provide anything to them. I couldn't provide them money. I couldn't provide them solace in knowing what's going to happen. So eventually I said, okay, how do I take this idea and create a better approach? And so in addition to the shows that I was producing at the time, I did about 20 interviews with athletes, and I asked them about how they were able to train during the pandemic. And I said, not everybody is going to be able to go through the exact same thing in terms of politically where they may stand, because we have a lot of disparity amongst people. Mm-hmm. But the one thing we can all agree is it did disrupt our way of how we train. And that's a real fact. So I compiled about 20 interviews, and I'm still in the process of going through that, but I'm going to make that a special mixtape episode of my broadcast. And my hope is that people, when they listen to it, can see that the competitor that they've competed against, or the competitor that they've watched on internet television, maybe share some similarities to what they went through. Because when an ADCC winner tells you that he was doing garage sessions with other guys who had no clue or who were just kind of there, it made me think, like, that's like having a pickup game, and Michael, Michael just shows up. Michael Jordan just shows up at your pickup game, mm-hmm. and then, like, this dude has an ADCC, not one, two. So doing these interviews made me so happy to go through that. And they were conducted a few months ago, but everything they said still somehow resonates this time later. So it's taking a while to combine them and to do a little bit of what I want to do with them, but I want to kind of splice the interviews together, make it a kind of programmed episode, and just revisiting these transcripts. It was so good for my own mental health in terms of seeing, like, oh, okay, they felt the same way I did when I didn't know when my next training session was. They felt the same way I did when they didn't know how they were going to be able to manage this for more than 2 weeks. Because I had the honor of interviewing Stefan Kesting when the pandemic began. Stefan is an epidemiologist himself. Mm-hmm. So he's able to explain this to me in terms that I was like, I'm a dummy. Explain it to me like I'm 5. And he did. And he goes, all right, Raf, we're asking everybody to flatten the curve, stay home, for 2 weeks. And I go, sure, I can do 2 weeks. I mean, that's fine. We'll all take 2 weeks off of grappling. And he goes, it might be longer. And I swear to God, you could see me on the broadcast go, it might. I can do 2 weeks. I know for sure I can do 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it's going to get dicey. And 2 weeks turned into 2.5 months for me. And that was a long break for a guy who likes to stay active as a hobbyist. So to hear the progression from Kesting's interview to even some of the current interviews that I do, it's a very, very long trajectory of seeing people go through things.
Yeah, no, it is. Whew, good Lord. Yeah, it's been a weird one. And especially, total disclosure, my wife ended up catching COVID, which sucked. And it led to us being we were kind of mourning the 2 weeks before Thanksgiving to like not be around family and whatever. We weren't around each other. We were all sequestered in each of the rooms in our house, the kids in one room, wife in the bedroom, and then me out here in the living room / studio. So again, it's just, you never know. You just never know, which, speaking of like horrible years, I would think that I guess a recipient, a nominee, if you will, of a horrible year would be one Rey Mysterio. Because he literally had his eye gouged out by Seth Rollins, right? So Steven Zeta wants to know, any prospect of another close to be generation of Dominic Mysterio or even Aaliyah being the next wave of Mysterio in the WWE?
I don't know. I part of that is just legacy. Like, do you feel like it's okay to have a legacy? I mean, it might have taken us a while to warm to Randy Orton, but he's in there. And well, think about that though. Randy Orton is an accepted, established member of the WWE universe.
Oh yeah.
But when he began, he was some kid's son, to the point where they said, how do we get around this? I don't know. Let's just call a group Legacy and just totally just live into that. And we'll just buy into that. Cody is a legacy. Like all of these guys at a certain point, I don't know that they should be promised anything, but if you look at Brody Jr. Getting a contract, I've never been more okay with anything in my life. And my first thought was, oh shit, is that company still going to be around then? I hope so. But I just knew what they did served a function that was both excellent to see a young kid get treated the way you should, and to know that when he looks back at what that was at a very difficult time in his life, he, even if he wasn't planning to be a wrestler, will be indebted to that company for the way that they were treated as human beings. And I want to say that it sounded like the WWE was a little callous on that one. I choose to believe that the WWE knew it wasn't their place. I think they probably looked at it from a logistical standpoint, which is, why are we going to try and compete with them on who mourns better when that's their guy? And that's my hope. It could have been Vince in the background being like, I don't know who that man is. Get him out of here. Like that could have been the case. But I choose to believe that they knew that something would be the case for AEW to do something special. And I think the credit goes to Tony Khan. Tony is at his core a real wrestling fan and has been giving us incredibly different things, even if it's in the same wheelhouse of what wrestling is, what we expect. Them putting MJF as Ralphie from A Christmas Story to me was exactly what I wanted. No, it's exactly what I wanted, because I said, you know what? Here's why. More people will see AEW through those clips when they want to watch A Christmas Story. It's marketing at a very, very shrewd level where I go, that may not do much for us as fans, but it still fits his character to somehow play another character while looking put on that he's having to do this and appear in a buddy costume. I just go, yeah, that all checks out. Like somehow the boxes all work there. In response to the overall idea, though, I think Dominic took enough kendo shots to kind of negate maybe having to pay some dues. lead spot on maybe a Summer Series or a Survivor Series sort of thing, or SummerSlam sort of a approach of your first match and having it out that way. Maybe there's something to be said there, dude. But I think of it like this. If you want your talent to feel accepted and welcomed, and you know that Rey Mysterio probably said, I'm only going to come back for a little while. There's only a few more years of this left. But it's important to me that we do this. It does show that they're listening to it. And who better to put that on than Vince McMahon, who starts every Thanksgiving dinner, I'm convinced, by asking, all right, who's taking the bump this year? Stephanie, you're going through a table. Hunter, we're going to put you in NXT, but instead you're going through the wall. You know, like everybody saying something like that. You know that Vince can't say pass the turkey. You know that the first thing is him saying, like, everybody, we had to cut back on the turkey this year because the WWE Network isn't doing very well.
I wonder if there's a turkey that essentially gets, the president gets to pardon the turkey. At the McMahon household, does the turkey get future endeavored? Is that?
I think that's it. I want to comment on this because I think Steven is mentioning this with people calling Randy an angel. Yes, that comment is there. Here's what I would say about this. Randy has done some excellent social media service. So when I see him and his family singing Bohemian Rhapsody, it might make you forget some of the things that he did in the past. So listen, dude, everybody has a very weird past to what they do. And there's some reason why he fits a heel description continuously. But like when you see him ripping apart the, him and Alexa Bliss doing a Firefly house, sort of a thing. Like to me, that looks like, yeah, that works with that character. That works there. That checks out. Like it's silly and he can somehow live in that world that most people don't really do well in. So I get that much.
And he's not taking too many bumps at the later stages of career. So that's what I look at too. It's like, it's preservation.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, dude, you stick around long enough, sometimes people forget the demons in your past. Mm-hmm. There's probably not one pro wrestler that has an unscathed past because you might be able to say that with like Sting, but Sting even had the steroids that he was doing back in the day. Like, I think everybody has options and choices, and hopefully they choose to make better ones as they get older and what they do. But, even sometimes looking around at Stone Cold, I was like, wasn't he accused of, oh, we forgot that? We're not there? Okay, cool.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. We'll sidestep that. I guess we would say, what? In response to that. Any comments on the prospect of Tessa Blanchard? Speaking of people who have made some unsavory choices, Tessa Blanchard, daughter of Tully Blanchard and stepdaughter of Magnum TA and daughter of Baby Doll, right? Obviously, she was Impact World Champion and then had to relinquish it unceremoniously. So there's been, I guess word around the water cooler that Tessa might appear in the WWE in the upcoming future. What say you on that?
I don't know yet. Here's some good news. For those of you who are going to read the things that she does or has done, I don't think you can get away with that for too long in the dubs. So sometimes it might be a good thing. But also, if you put her against, I always screw up her name. Do you pronounce it Nia or Nia?
Nia Jax.
Thank you, Nia Jax. Putting her up against Nia Jax seems almost like a corrective mechanism on being like, let's put these two things together and just let it go. And just, if one of them gets hurt, we're fine.
I was going to say, I mean, the only thing that I could see her debuting in the perfect capacity would be like one of those Blood Money Saudi shows. But with that all being said, the Saudis don't like the women. So just saying.
Listen, all you need to know is it's kind of amazing that they even put on a female match or two. And as disruptive as it is to the WWE, that they have had to make certain curtails to certain questionable people. It is pretty impressive that they did get a women's match or two that did fly over there. So it's good and bad, and it's always looking at it from multiple angles. I think Steven put up something that I kind of want to address here, which is I'm not a fan of the Alexa Bliss manipulating storyline. Okay. Here's what I would say about that. I think that's the point. I think the point is to make you feel weird, to make you feel like she's kind of like the Harley Quinn to the madness that is going on around it. And to certain extents, I don't know that I care and don't care, but when I did see it, I go, I don't hate it. And honestly, I don't hate it might as well be the new pro wrestling version of not bad, because I don't hate it is more than neutral at this point. It's sort of like when you come into the year and you didn't lose weight, but you stayed the exact same weight. You go, hey guys, I lost weight. In 2021, that's the new losing weight, is I gained no pounds. So I feel like it's an element of, it allows the Fiend to kind of go away, which is kind of important to do so that he can come back. Because I'll tell you, man, if you look at your pro wrestling regimen, if you look at when The Undertaker was buried and put in a coffin, and I was a child watching that, I thought, how do you come back from that? There's no way you show back up in about a week. And that was scary AF. And then all of a sudden, he comes back, and you go, how did The Undertaker come back? That doesn't make any sense conceptually. You're a child. They teach you once you die, you go away. And yet here comes The Undertaker, larger than life. So to me, if you do that with The Fiend, where you put him on fire, you go, well, logically, that guy dead. And then he comes back. We are passing that on to the next generation so that maybe they'll experience it in a similar way while still keeping the storyline fresh, so that it doesn't get stale, or you add a little bit of a spin to it. So I don't hate it. And I think that's almost saying maybe I like it. We'll see.
Maybe I like it. And talk about the good brothers, Robert Simonson of Free Admission Media.
Rob.
What's up, guys? What's up, Rob? And again, you got to check out the Gym Crashers every Tuesday night on Free Admission Media's YouTube and Facebook pages. So I'm just saying, and I'm a member of Free Admission Media. I rock with fucking Free Admission Media all day, every day. And Meme Gob Raf is what one Anthony Aguilera says, and Addis is joining back on the show for the first time in this year. Say, hey, my dudes, Happy New Year, guys! Happy New Year, Addis, and screw Randy Orton. I agree with Addis on this one, 100%.
Isn't that the point, though? Isn't that the markings of a good heel? That he doesn't have to appear at a show at all, and just by mentioning him by name, you go, screw that guy.
But see, okay, like for me, the last time that I was a fan of Randy Orton when he broke his shoulder and was doing those, chicken shit heel promos and I'm better than you, I was onto it, doing the ozone and all that jazz. And then once he became like a part of Evolution, I was done. Like the Legend Killer, I was just like, why are you fucking pushing Randy? It wasn't like, oh, you dastardly person. No, it was like, why the fuck are you doing that, dude? Like, just why?
I mean, Randy has essentially been the same thing for a long time. And the hard part is, I think wrestling fans love to hate somebody until they're gone. And so it's almost like with John Cena, and you go, man, John Cena sucks, but man, I miss him now. Man, I hate that John Cena sucks, but he doesn't suck for us right now. Where is John Cena? Maybe he'll come back. Like, that's what happens. Same thing that you can disrupt the disbelief, which is, if you look at what they've done with Roman Reigns this past year, it's just, listen, dude, that guy should not ever have a compelling storyline, but him, Uso, just like, look at those storylines. Even if you're playing around his limited moveset, it's telling the story in a way that makes you go, oh, Tribal Chief, Heyman, a little bit more aggressive in a finish. Okay. Even if he's not my guy, I can work with that. It's the same thing with Randy, where now he may beat, I think, Big Show on week to week, turn heel face, face heel, face heel, heel face. There we go.
It's almost like the blood code in Mortal Kombat Circus Sega Genesis. I'm just saying the heel flip and flop. I'm just saying. Which and Anthony Aguilera says, who y'all got? Connor or Dustin? Obviously in reference to the pay-per-view hike of all of the pay-per-views on ESPN Plus. So essentially we're doling out another $15 theoretically. For Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, which I don't think they've announced it yet, but it should be the vacant title. This should be it. But what say you? Who wins, and what are the terms and conditions that speak like an angel's harp to Raf Esparza?
Terms and conditions sounds like something I didn't read in an iTunes agreement, and I just go, yeah, okay, sure, just give me the song. Just give me some Katy Perry. That's all I want right now. What I would tell you is, okay, first and foremost, there's a lot to cover here. $69 going up another $5 really pisses me off, because how much longer are we going to do this? We're going to be spending about $100 per pay-per-view pretty soon, and I don't know that I'm prepared for that. As it is, I think somebody did a calculation, and we end up paying about $1,100 a year just to be a UFC fan. So fun hobby, everybody. Number two, somebody mentioned this, and I don't know how easy I believe it or easy it is for maybe other people to believe as well. But they were mentioning the fact that once you get starched, it is very hard to come back psychologically. So they were saying Dustin is going to have the harder time coming back. Now, I want to say I believe that, but I think the person who gave you that quote was none other than Conor McGregor's coach himself. So if we're talking psychology, it's a tough one to wrap yourself around, because Dustin's been on a very solid tear, all things considered otherwise. Do we live in a world where Conor McGregor is still good? We asked this question multiple times, but last year when he dusted Calvary Cerrone, it was enough for us to go, okay, now do somebody else. And the somebody else became Dustin Poirier. And I think to myself, well, he's already beaten him once. I don't know why we're doing this again, apparently for charity, which, okay, cool. I don't know if that's going to stick. But hey, man, I think it would be best for the division if Conor wins. And I feel like Dustin needs to stay consistent, and I think that he will eventually be a champion. That whole division is about to be torn upside down on its head, all that sort of a thing. One of my friends put up a meme, as they do every year, which is who's going to lose their title first, and it shows every UFC current champion. And my first thought was, isn't it Khabib? Like, Khabib's in that list. Shouldn't he lose it first by theoretical I retired? But apparently they can't leave well enough alone, and Dana White is in the process of still trying to get Khabib to come back. I honestly think, this is my honest opinion, I don't think Khabib has ever been a major draw in his own right. So the fact of making him seem like he is so burdened to come back is part of the appeal of building him to another pay-per-view draw. I'm not saying that I disbelieve his family and that sort of vow, but having said that, is it not kind of shitty to put that on your mom, though?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, guys, I would fight, but my mom, she hates it. So blame her. I'm just Khabib. I just want to fight forever. But, this mom, she's the worst. Am I right, you guys?
It's not like she lost her husband or anything. Her life partner for eons, decades even.
I felt so bad when I saw that, because every person in the world was like, come on, Khabib's mom. And I was like, leave her the fuck alone. Like, I get it, dude. Khabib, all you have to say is just, I don't want to fight anymore. What else do I need to prove? I think I'm GOAT, and my record holds itself. And we'd all be fine. But when he goes, I don't know, man, I would fight, but my mom, but if I did come back, who's even left for me to fight? Oh, well. It's like, dude, stop the USADA testing, give the belt away, talk it up. But instead, when you keep that door open, you leave fans getting nothing more than salivating, and potentially, and this is the hardened person in me that thinks, is that just meant to make us want to see it more? The thing that we don't have? Because guess what? Everything is goddamn pro wrestling. So if that's the case, you can't fool us if you're just going to do that. If you
Yeah.
want to fight, just fight, and we'll all be okay with it. Nobody will complain.
No, not at all. Not at all. Speaking about complaining, Stephen Tatum has a couple parter in reference to Fiend needing Alexa Bliss. He says, I know it makes money in the Scarlet Carrion Cross combo in NXT, but it seems like it's a part of the mythology. But to his own point, did Thanos have a beautiful assistant? Assuming Alexa Bliss is beautiful, but if you're Ryan Cabrera, he totally checks the boxes. And Stone Cold, was he better with or without Deborah? I mean, was Lennon better or with or without Yoko? I mean, where are we going here? But so all of those places, I mean, that, Austin Deborah and
think about that. I would say the main faultiness of trying to say that a woman doesn't exist in the Thanos region would have to be Gamora, because even though she wasn't the female love interest, she was still the heart that gave the whole movie its theme. If you look at death in the comic books as an actual seduction, then yeah, there is a femme fatale that finds its way into those things. If you really want to talk like mythology and all those sorts of things, people are motivated to do crazy things at any given time. You can obviously have a monster just be a monster and exist. But the hard part about that is that if you don't care about the monster, then they just kind of become this all-intensive being that you don't want a background of. It becomes like, oh, I'm going to do a movie called Halloween. Awesome. But we're going to talk a little bit about a psychological past. Yeah? We going to do that? Why are we going to do that? He's just a killer. Can we just do the killer thing? And it's like, well, no, because if you make that movie again, people will think you're not taking any chances. I don't have any issues with this. I think it's just something that bides the time. It tells the story in a little bit of a different way. And I think Alexa Bliss can actually, all things considered, every time I've seen her thrown a task, at the very least, she commits 100% to that. And to me, whenever you want to say those things about storylines, I think that's the difference maker between her being where she is right now and being like, man, she's a team player. And like even saying like, yeah, Roman was the guy that they were throwing, but even he looked uncomfortable a lot of that time. And then now suddenly that he gets to embrace this, I'm a true, tweener. I don't know if I'm a good or a bad guy, but my conviction makes me bad. Now it's more compelling. So yeah.
Yeah, well, in the instance of that, I'm saying Thanos didn't introduce his sister Abigail. This is what I'm saying. So you have to fill that in the WWE universe. I for my money, I would have preferred it to be Abaddon or Rosemary of Impact. But you can't always get what you want. And opinion. Do we see Taker wrestling again? Not a thin blue line. Yeah,
I hope not, man. I've been, dude. I led the charge every year of please don't, this one's good, please don't. And even the ones that he didn't think were good, I was like, good enough for me. We're good here, bro. Like even him doing the whole John Cena thing last year, as I go, all right, Cena's the top of the cup, but he has to be the last one, right? No, he's no. Saudi Arabia, no, stop it. Yeah. Everybody stop it. I would tell you that with Taker, unless it's a cinematic match, I don't really want to see it. I think Taker's mentally done. I don't think Vince is done. Like, to me, watching Vince get more emotional than Taker was about the end of the career was a weird inverse because, and walk with me here, people, this might be a big stretch of the imagination, but was Vince more sad that a longtime friend was going to go off into the sunset and retire, or was he mad that his greatest character creation has finally come to an end, thus making him feel the morality of his own legacy as a wrestling promoter? Because when I saw him in the ring, to have emotion like that, if it's manufactured, excellent. Well done, Vince. But for him to have that emotion, to me, seemed a little bit of equal parts. I respect this man a lot. I'm sad he's not going to be here to save me in a jam. But also, I can't create another Undertaker, and I'm so sad, and I'm such a genius, and I kind of got that vibe. And I think apparently Sting, according to the dirt sheets, had pitched a match between him versus The Undertaker in a cinematic universe. And when Vince said no, he goes, all right, well, I'm going to go to AEW. And it seems like they're kind of interested in having me do some cinematic stuff, which won't have me do a buckle bomb that will render me stupid for the rest of my life. So yeah, sure. I think I'll do that instead. And A+, good with that.
Well, I honestly thought that Vince was just cosplaying as Walter Mercado. Amor. I'm just saying. That's what I got from it. So nice eyebrows, Vince. Shout out to Vince. And Jiu-Jitsu Island, says Robert Timerson. Thanks, guys. Just watched the sub-only series last night. Good job again, Raf. So heaps of praise.
Praise. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, again, thank you guys for joining us here. Raf, where can people find Verbal Tap, Grappling Hour, and Early Late Night with Raf Esparza? You're doing so many things with so much, and sometimes so little. I mean, you've done a lot with little. You almost were, oh God, much like Paul Heyman with Roman Reigns, I will say. So where can they find out everything about what you're doing?
Cool. So the Early Late Night program is a late night show. I used to write jokes for The Tonight Show years ago and do a live show at a local comedy club out this way. But last year I decided to do a few. And if you ever see me in a suit, that's usually my way of tipping off. It's going to be the old school, tell you some monologue jokes, do a couple sketches, and then bring on a guest and do that. We did some of those last year. You can find that at Early Late Night. That is on all major platforms. So we're talking YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, Twitter, all of that sort of stuff. Then if you want to talk about the other two, those are the combat sports. And of course, the flagship show, Verbal Tap Cast. You can find us on Instagram making memes. You can find us on Twitter making jokes about people. You can find us on Facebook as well. That's where we end up posting a lot of our episodes and whatnot. And our full library is available on Red Circle. You can find that at verbaltapcast.com, and you'll be able to go listen to all 441 episodes thus far in our library on that one. And then, of course, Grappling Hour is the spinoff, and it's just like the MMA Hour, except better. And the way it works is we bring on show guests who have just competed out in a major tournament. We want to get you to know them, their stories, and it's the only weekly topical show that will walk you through the ins and outs of not only their backgrounds, their stories, but how they're able to do it during times pandemic and not. So we've been pretty fortunate to have a run, and last year we produced a record number of episodes, and we also do what we like to call Fight Companion, which is where we grab some beers and we do some cheers to those who get finishes within regulation. So those are the places you guys can find me. So at Grappling Hour, at Verbal Tapcast, and at Early Late Night for all of those different regions and much more.
Absolutely. And again, I'm subscribed and following all of those said promotions and iterations of Raf Esparza, because again, this feels like an extension of you, and you're sharing us, and even producer wife Kelly is sharing you with us, and we couldn't thank her enough. Now, obviously, I kind of did a Jet of the Fish. I kind of went out of order because usually I get the shout outs before the promo stuff. So I want you, good sir, to get some shout outs out of the way to people personally and professionally that have helped you along the way in both your jiu-jitsu, comedy, and I guess the third one would be, I said double, but I lied, but also your broadcasting career.
Oof, I wish I had more people who helped me on my broadcasting career. I would say this, when I first started, it was all trial by error. And that is part of the reason why I have made it a mission to reach out to those who start podcasts or start shows, is because a lot of it was just navigating, well, how do we do this? And nobody really seems to be doing it like this. And, we did our thing. So that's been my thing. And I would shout out all of the guys who are producing new shows. Like, I always tell people, don't start until you have a hook, because if you don't have a hook, you're not going to know what to do. and it's not going to inform or shape your perspective or how your guests want to appear on the show. So shout out to everybody who's trying this. It's very difficult to do, but it's a lot of fun and very fulfilling when you do it right. So I very much appreciate that. To the people who have been influential in my jiu-jitsu life, I want to go ahead and shout out people like John Evans, who's maybe the only reason I'm not garbage at jiu-jitsu. He was the person to really show me a roadmap as to how I could make jiu-jitsu work for me. And even when I would complain and he'd show something super fancy and I'd go, well, that's not going to work for me, he would detail ways that he thought could work for me. And I always appreciate people like that. I also want to shout out, Kevin Phillips, my co-host of 8.5 years now. And he is somebody who is just reliably been funny, a great partner to work with. And everybody should be lucky if you do one of these things as a partnership to have somebody that makes you laugh. And I think that if you're laughing and there's a mutual respect there, you can do the show for forever. And I think that that's kind of the mindset that we're doing thus far in. So when it stops being fun, that's when we'll probably stop. But for right now, I don't think it's really anytime soon that we're going to be looking to end that. And I would tell you this, at least professionally, in terms from the early late night people, the people I really like to shout out on all three platforms, but specifically early late night and grappling hour, are the people who have submitted jokes, the people who have submitted segments, the guest stars or the guest commentators that we brought in, yourself included in that history now, of who show up and give a couple hours of their life to make other people laugh and be entertained. And I think that there was no better year than this past year to recognize what an important service that many of those people do, because they take it for granted until they're at home and they realize, I don't have any more Netflix to go through. But if you have us, we're endless amounts of entertainment and being there week after week. So I've been very lucky to have you come on a number of times on our show, but it's not just you, it's a number of people that have come on and served as part of our panel, part of our guest writers, part of our guest hosts. I mean, you name it. So we've been very fortunate. And those are the people who are very close and near and dear to my heart. So I appreciate them.
Well, you're near and dear to my heart, good sir. And I kind of, I don't know if I tease it off air, but I will share it. And I want to give you, Raf Esparza, a good shout out. And you have been a tremendous help to me doing this kind of venture here. But I'm going to take it back, go into the DeLorean, so to speak, because here is a picture of a 10th Planet party, like probably about 4 years ago. And it's, for those who don't know, it's Donna Gonzalez and Becky Dominguez of the Mat Therapy podcast, Donna's wonderful husband, Jonathan Gonzalez. And yes, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour, Raf Esparza of the Verbal Tap. And when we took this picture, I wanted to be at least earn my seat at the table in terms of these podcasters that I listen to, because at a time where I found your podcast, where I found Mat Therapy, I was working a job that I didn't really like, but I got to do jiu-jitsu at lunch. And when that job ended up letting us go, like the entire company got bought out and everything like that, I turned to you guys. So when I was able to meet you guys then that day, you guys were my idols. You guys are still my idols. So I thank you guys. And you have been so kind to shoot me a DM, allow me to be a part of your show a couple of times, more times than anybody else has given me kind of leisure to. So I thank you, Raf Esparza, because if not you, I don't think I would be.
That's very nice to say. It's not true in the sense that you wouldn't be. You would be. You would have found a way. We all find a way. But the issue is, it's my hope that whatever I did, it just gave you a little bit faster of an approach. And that's really the whole point, is that, like I said, man, when you don't have people that you got the opportunity to look up to, it is your responsibility to send the elevator back down. So if you don't do that as a human being, I don't know how this facilitates. I don't know how this keeps going forward. So all I did was do to you what I had wished would have been done for me. And it makes me feel so happy to know that it is manifested in a small way and that you have continued to prove that you were always destined to do this. So it's not anything that I did other than maybe give you a jump start, whereas maybe another stranger would have done it. But the fact that you are part of our history as well is something that I am incredibly proud of. And dude, you're going to continue doing great things. So I'm very proud of you. Also, you don't have to thank me. Just, we're good. And you have a great show. Thank you very much for bringing me on.
Well, again, Raf Esparza, I thank you. I thank Kevin. I thank everybody in the Verbal Tap, Grappling Hour, as well as early late night family for allowing me to be a part of it. And again, you guys, the According to Woods universe, for joining us here in this new year. And this is one of many great moments that we get to share in this New Year's. And I'm so thankful that we started off the new year right with Raf Esparza. So thank you guys for joining us. And again, if you guys haven't already done so, I would warmly encourage you to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to the According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Yes, Twitch. And I mean, good Lord, Raf Esparza is subscribed, right?
I am subscribed. I was about to say, I was like, this actually would have gotten really bad if I wasn't. I was like, yeah, hold on. I'm sure I am. No, I am a subscriber.
Damn right he is. And that shows me love in the comment section all the time. So I appreciate you. And Anthony Aguilera says, great show. And producer wife Kelly is a super awesome and a great lady. Absolutely she is. And we need some producer wife Kelly shirts as we leave here. But again, if you guys haven't already done so, go ahead and subscribe. But don't just take Raf's word for it or mine. Here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to